Hello, BCC family. I am here with Marilyn Cummins, our parish nurse, member of the task force, Jenny Subcheck, former moderator, member of the task force, and our current co-moderators, Aaron and Sean Wurzbacher, representing the leadership team, to give you a COVID update and our re-entering church plan update. We tried to keep you informed along the way with articles in the e-news and regular updates, but it's nice from time to time to have a little forum where we can ask some of the questions and answer some of the questions that we have heard through the grapevine from the congregation. As always, if you have a question, feel free to let me know. If I can't answer it, I'll be happy to pass it along or bring it to the task force or to leadership team. We are open to your input and ideas, and we always thank you for your patience as we do this. One of the questions that has come up is, what is the metric or the numbers we're using to decide what is safest, safer, safe, and not safe for working with our re-entry plan? And so Jenny is one of the people on the task force that has been following that data, and I've asked her to weigh in on that. Jenny?
Well, thank you. Just to remind everybody, the metrics of unsafe is when there is a vaccination percentage of less than 50%, as well as a viral transmission of new cases greater than 10 per 100,000. For a safer category, the vaccination rate would be 50 to 70%, and a viral transmission of new cases of 5 to 10 per 100,000. And the safest is a vaccination rate of the population of 70 to 85%, and new cases of less than 1 per 100,000. So we've been following that very closely. The summertime, we were closer to safer, and things have changed, and we're constantly watching those numbers. As of today, I did go to COVID Act Now, and the new cases is 36.7 per 100,000. However, we do have a decent vaccination rate in Waukesha County, and again, the vaccination isn't for the church, it's for the county that you're in, and we're about 56%, so we're getting there. Right. We're getting there. We're trying our best.
Well, and part of that is not just reflecting, we probably have a higher vaccination rate within the congregation, but we all go out and live our lives, and we interact with people who may or may not be vaccinated. We have exposure events that happen in our work and in school with our kids and out in the grocery store. So we bring all that back here. So we really have to base it on the community, right, not just what is going on in our own congregation, right?
That is correct. We wish we could all live together here, but we can't. That's not the reality.
Well, some days we do. Do live here. So.
Right, that's true.
We think we do.
Marilyn, did you want to weigh in on that from the point of view of a staff member responsible kind of for pastoral care and connection?
Sure. We hope during this time, this past, it seems like it's almost 2 years now, that in spite of not being able to be together in worship, that Laura and I and anybody on the staff has been available to reach out to you as needed, as Laura said, through newsletters and information. But I've felt in the last 2 years that folks, most of you have been very comfortable calling and asking for what you need. We try to be respectful of people's private life. We hear things through the grapevine, but we keep it close to us, and we don't want it to be gossiping about your care or what you may need. Through this time, many of you, and I so appreciate that you've taken the time to call with a question or concern about your health care or health of your family and reach out to me. We're available. If I'm not here, somebody will get a message to me. But I really appreciate you taking the time to be thoughtful and be concerned. And many of you, a few of you, have come in, and we actually meet in the office. I think it's safe now, with most of us being vaccinated and masked. We can sit and have a conversation in a private discussion about something that concerns you. So that has not changed, and that will not change, regardless if we're masked or not. And we always want you to feel that this is your church home, in spite of even having to wear a mask, that you're welcome here and that you feel safe here. And that's the task force main goal, is that you're safe.
I agree. That is our goal.
There are a couple of things that have come up that have come back to the task force that I think it's important that we talk a little bit about, whoever wants to answer. One is, why are we still wearing masks? Because masks are not required in a lot of places out in the public. And if they're required, they're often not required for people that have been fully vaccinated. So why are we still wearing masks? I mean, I know why.
Yeah.
Well, I think we don't know, as you said, what's out there. And we know even though we're vaccinated, we still could pass it on to someone. And just personal experience in my neighborhood, a young man with some disability, young child, he's 11 years old, can't get vaccinated. He's gotten it because in the schools, some are vaccinated, some are not. So we know that they work. We know from last year, just even the flu, and it was almost non-existent. So we know if you sneeze, if you do, it protects. The numbers just tell you that. And personal experience with my daughter-in-law works in last year she was in charge of a bunch of COVID units. None of her staff they weren't vaccinated yet, it wasn't out yet, but they wore masks. They wore regular surgical masks in the unit when they were with a COVID patient. It was the full PPE, and nobody got COVID. So we know that they work. They work. At least you have a first defense of, somebody told me once that when you sneeze, it can go 70 miles an hour.
Yes.
So somebody
And a
sneezes.
distance.
Right.
And a
And you
huge
go
distance.
walk through a grocery store, you're, gonna get it. The thing is, they just don't know.
Well,
They just don't know how people,
right.
And we know this works.
We do, and the CDC is still recommending it, especially being indoors, especially being with people who are not in your bubble,
Right?
in a combination of vaccinated and unvaccinated, as well as those who may not have mounted a good enough response to their vaccination. So we keep that in mind. And wearing a mask, I read a good article that said, we just don't know enough to take it off yet. And I think that's a good way to approach that. And it's only for a little while when we come to church to have it on.
Yeah,
it's not,
right.
It's not
that
all
hard.
day or a shift. And we do know they work.
Yeah.
To speak to Marilyn's daughter-in-law, at my own place of work, we had 2 staff members who had COVID, and they came to work. They had N95s. None of us ever contracted COVID through the workspace. So we knew it was working, and those young ladies were sitting less than 6 feet away from each other.
Right.
So that was a reassurance to us, like, yes, those
That works.
N95s were working, and
Yeah.
that's why we're still wearing masks of some sort at work. It's nothing less than a surgical mask because it's helpful. Yes, it does.
Definitely.
Yep.
I heard a pediatric endocrinologist interviewed on the radio today about the vaccines coming out for children now. And she said, the Delta rise seems to have gone, is heading down now. But the little peaks we're seeing every once in a while in communities are really because people aren't following precautions. It's not a new variant. It's not a new strain. There are different variations of the Delta out there. But if we would all wear our masks and wash our hands and, be careful about the people we're with, like we were at the beginning of this.
And
we don't
stay
need to go
home when
back-
sick.
Right? We
Yeah.
don't need to go back to isolating in our own homes. But if we were careful about when we're out in public, that those little things wouldn't pop up. And so that goes to the safest way in which we're trying to, do that.
That's right.
Sean, did you want to say something?
Yeah, just to build on what Jenny and Marilyn are saying, I think, when you're around others, you might not know what their specific situation is. So if you're sitting next to them, they could be immunocompromised. They might live with somebody that's immunocompromised. They might live with somebody that isn't able to get vaccinated yet. So it's really about taking care of the community around you and wearing a mask when you're at church, right? So really want to take care of each other, and we want to take care of our community. And so wearing a mask for the time that we're at worship and we're together is a way that we can play a part with that.
That's awesome. Thank you. And, you know, we had our trunk or treat event this last weekend, and we had some families who haven't come back to Sunday school because they have unvaccinated children, and they're just not comfortable with them being in a building. And, you know, they know they have to go to school, but that's a risk they have to take. Being here on a Sunday isn't. And so, you know, being outdoors for the trunk or treat, people loved it and they loved to come. And yet we did have a couple of families who weren't able to come because of exposure events in school and wanting to keep our population safe. And so it isn't just about us. It's about everybody that we come into contact with. I want to go back to the sneezing, you know, 75 miles an hour or whatever, which brings us to singing, because singing is the equivalent of sneezing.
It's a long sneeze, if you will. I think
right.
it can be equated to a several-minute cough. I think it was like 15-minute cough. Think about, because when we're taking a deep breath in, we're going down deep. You know, we're bringing that out, and we're constantly expelling those particles into the air. And that's part of the reason why we haven't come back to singing for all of us, because if all of us are singing and we're not masked or partially masked, not wearing our mask correctly, we're going to be increasing the potential of a viral load being in the air that will be transmissible. And we're trying to avoid that.
Yeah, and you may have noticed in worship, whether you're in person or you watch virtually, that we have had people singing. Jackie has sung, and for Advent and coming up in the next couple of months, we're going to have some more sung stuff. But those are by individuals or by small groups of people staying at a safe distance and wearing a singing mask, which is a mask that is designed for singing, that allows space to breathe and not have your mask up against your mouth, but also is fully contained so that there's not, you know, that viral load isn't going out there when people sing. We're also, I miss the singing a ton, and I'm singing in my head when Gary is playing, you know, a variation on a hymn for the prelude or postlude, and we recognize that Advent and Christmas are a time when people really, like, that is the season to sing, even for the people that don't sing. So we were watching the numbers closely. If it's possible to do congregational singing indoors, we absolutely will as soon as we can. But also, we are going to have a carol sing every Sunday out around the fire pit after worship, so we can sing those carols. And we're being creative with Christmas Eve and singing Silent Night, so we'll more about that later. But we hear the need, and we will address it the very best that we can.
Right.
Sean, you had mentioned that leadership team, because the way task force works is we make recommendations to leadership team. We're an advisory group, so we don't dictate what happens. We say, here's our recommendations, and leadership team affirms them. And I think in our last recommendation, where we were staying the course with the mask wearing, you said something to the effect of, well, really, other than having to wear masks for worship and not being able to sing or eat in the building together, everything's kind of back to normal.
Yeah. No, I think, that's absolutely true. And I think about, you know, and wanted to recognize the task force for all that they've done. And this has been going on now, as everybody knows, for over 18 months.
Yeah.
And the dedication, the focus, and how steadfast this team has been around staying with the objective of keeping people safe while delivering a really connected experience for the church. And they've done that very successfully. And I know on behalf of Aaron and I and the leadership team, want to thank them for their continued efforts on that front. So it's really been a huge effort. The decisions that the task force are making are not always, might not always be liked by everybody, right, or appreciated by everybody, but they're the decisions, right, that really stay very steady to the course of what we want to achieve, which is keeping the congregation as safe as we can. So wanted to thank them for their continued efforts. And Laura, to your point, yes, I mean, we've made huge progress. If you think about where we were even a year ago,
Yeah.
to where we are now. We're back in worship. Children's church is back again.
Yeah.
Mission opportunities continue. Small groups are meeting again in the church. We have plenty of opportunities for members to be involved and give back to the community as well as participate in church, whether you're here in person or whether you're virtual. So we've come a really long way, and to the point, Laura, you're making, really at this point, it's singing, we just talked about, and it's really eating indoors as a part of fellowship. Now, with that said, we're still having fellowship without the eating and without drinking coffee, but it's still an amazing way for everybody to connect while they're here in person and worship. And then hopefully, again, following the science, following the facts, following the numbers, we can continue to bring back those activities again. And I know certainly we're all eager to do that, but we really want to stay focused and ensure that we're following the science as we do that.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think too that liturgical arts has met, and we're really working very hard to do some kind of fun and interesting things with the Advent walk, changing it up a little bit. And there's all those fun, they're coming up, opportunities that we can still gather and worship together in a different way. And I'm not sure maybe we'll ever get rid of some of those things if we ever get back to whatever new normal it will be.
Yeah.
The other thing I would just want to think with worship too, to be more safe, we're keeping the doors open in the back so the air flows, and the seating, social distancing, all those little things. And we can do hard things. We've all done hard things in our life. We know we can do this. And we know everybody's frustrated. We hear it. We get it. There's just days we want to go, everybody's that way. But we appreciate the kind thoughts in everyone, people coming and saying, thank you for keeping us safe. Thank you for keeping us informed. And we'll listen if you have we want to hear everything.
Yeah.
And if there's a way that you think we could do things different or better, or that you would like to see, hey, we're open, because we can get tapped out days too to be kind of creative. I know Bonnie's looking into to get together to eat. People are going to restaurants. If you want to join the lunch brunch group, that's another option. People feel safe as they're getting boosters and so forth, to gather with church folks. So, anybody has any ideas, we'll try them safely. So
That's great. Yeah, it just reminded me that I was working, before we came in here to record this, I was working on the Advent liturgies. And I was like, what did we do oh wait, we weren't here.
I know.
It was me and the musicians in the sanctuary alone on a Wednesday or something recording. We recorded Christmas Eve, not on Christmas Eve. So it feels like we've been locked down forever, but in a way, we're back. We're in the sanctuary for Advent and Christmas. We're going to have in-person worship. We are able to engage and connect with each other. There are a couple of limitations for now, but like you say, we can endure. We can get through anything.
And I think as we look this Sunday to honor and revere and talk about the folks that we've lost since January of 19, which are 15 of them, they were mostly older, 80s, some 90s. I don't think there was anyone in their 70s, maybe one person, but none of those folks died of COVID or had some concomitant illness and then got COVID on top of it, and then that was what caused their death. So we kept our elderly safe.
And we've had no COVID exposure events related to an activity at church.
Right.
Nobody
super spreader
passed
thing.
on COVID because of, we followed our protocols and they're working. So,
Yeah.
If I can, I was
Yeah.
just actually going to say that same exact thing, that, as frustrating and as, over COVID everybody is, I think it's really important to acknowledge, as has been said here, how far we have come. And the bottom line is, we don't want to have to go backwards. So just, even if you don't agree with the process and the protocol or the decisions that are being made, we just ask that you try to be patient and respectful of them because they are so purposeful. And Sean has attended several of the COVID task force meetings, which are all virtual, and I've heard bits and pieces of it just by virtue of living in the same house with him. But I can tell you that the thought process and the discussion is so deliberate and, I mean, painstakingly careful, the way that they think through every single thing that is decided. Nothing is done, in haste at all. So to echo what Sean said earlier, we are very appreciative of all the time and energy and effort you all have put into it. And I just ask everybody to just, hang in there with us, just appreciate how far we've come, what we do have to offer, because it is so much. And just, we will get through this, but just please be patient and respectful of it all.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Anybody else have anything else to add? Sean is grabbing the microphone.
I'm grabbing the microphone. Yeah, I just also wanted to thank Laura, you and the staff, and Marilyn as a part of the staff. It just, we talked about it a little bit, but we've come a long way, and I think we've come a long way because of the dedication and the innovative approach that the staff has taken. And it's really enabled us to do things that before COVID, we probably wouldn't have done or even tried.
Oh, no.
It's true.
And now we have things that honestly will become even beyond COVID, will continue to be a part of church life.
Yeah.
Virtual worship opportunities in ways that we connect well beyond right here in the sanctuary to those who would like to join. So, and there are many more examples of that. So a thank you to Laura, to you and the staff for all that you've done, and would certainly echo Aaron's comments around we've come a long way. Things are being done very thoughtfully. They're working, and we want to continue on that path.
Thank you. I'm smiling, you can't tell, but I am. Anybody else? And I just want to wrap it up by again thanking everybody for their patience with this whole process. The very beginning of this, when we were all not even sure what was happening, when we was like, is the world going to shut down? Are we ever going to come out of our houses? What's going to happen to the economy? What's going to happen to our jobs and our families and our churches? And we were just terrified. I remember our first task force meeting, and we decided what is going to be the standard? What are our watchwords? And we made it very clear that we weren't going to compare ourselves with other churches or other things in the community. We weren't going to be, pushed back and forth by the whims of what felt right in a particular moment, that we were going to focus on the data, the science, and that we were going to do what was right for our church and for our community. And I am really grateful for that, because I know that we can, as a congregation, look back with pride at how we handled this and how we didn't have this, we're open, and then we had to shut down because we had an exposure, or our entire choir is out with COVID, or, or we, God forbid, led to something that led to somebody's passing because of an exposure event. And we did what was right for our community. And I hear all the time from people who quietly watch what we're doing. They're not people who are, necessarily on the front lines of everything, but who take time to write a thank you note or send an email and say, we see what you're doing and we appreciate it. And so we don't always toot our own horn about it, because I get that this is hard. But I'm proud of us for doing the right thing. And ultimately, when things return to what the new normal will be, the new abnormal, we can look back with pride that we did the right thing. And thank you all for hanging in there with it. And we want to be able to see each other's smiles again, but at least we can see each other's eyes in person. And we will record another message with updates, as soon as we have them. But as always, watch the e-news for updates as we get them. We meet every 2 to 3 weeks as a task force, and if there are major changes, we convene, impromptu to address issues that come up. So we thank you again for your patience and appreciate you listening to our message. Have a blessed day.